Number 62, The Underground, Part 3 in a series of 9 Dark Chronicles. My arms were strapped with black Velcro to an office-type chair on wheels. The dark room was filled with cigar smoke and much activity. I could see that there were people in other rooms watching various sporting events on televisions. There was a large table in the center of the room, and several men paced around the room, 2 of whom were on their mobile phones. The one that seemed to be in charge was not. He glanced at me occasionally, as well as his watch. One of the men finished his phone conversation, and as soon as he did, the man in charge asked him, "What did he say?" The tall man replied, "He just came in. He's on his way down." The man in charge seemed pleased. He made his way over to me. He motioned to the tall man who was on the phone, and together they pushed my chair towards the table. Once there, he spun me around and spoke to me for the first time. "Are you right-handed or a lefty?" I said nothing, but I wiggled my right hand, which he noticed. His tall henchman quickly removed the Velcro strap that held my right forearm. He then spun me back around toward the table. The man in charge pushed several sheets of paper in front of me. He put his left hand on my right shoulder and leaned in toward me. He spoke again. "There's a guy coming in here with some papers. You're going to sign them. And then you're going to sign these as well." I had no clue where I was or what was going on. I said nothing. I only observed. I heard a door open behind me, and there was some light conversation, and then a young Hispanic man dressed rather well walked into the light. He briefly looked at me. Then the other mafia-type man placed a stack of papers in front of me. He handed me a pen and said, "Start signing." I didn't move a muscle. I was clueless as to what was going on, and I acted that way. The mafia-type man sat on the table and leaned down with his face inches away from mine. "Listen, you've been through a lot. I don't want things to get any worse for you. You sign these papers, and then you'll go home soon." He then got up and motioned for everyone to leave the room. I sat there, confused about just what was going on. I waited a few more moments, and then, out of curiosity, I picked up a paper from the top stack. I slowly read what I made out to be a loan application, a foreign loan application. The majority of them were in Spanish. I looked through the balance of the papers, and they too were the same, each from different banks in different third world countries. And my immediate thought was, I'm not signing these. But then I quickly remembered my predicament. So I picked up the dark-colored pen and began to sign my name. My handwriting looked foreign to me as it emerged through the ink. I stopped momentarily to observe it. It was terrible and appalling, almost laughable. But I thought to myself, perhaps this was good. Maybe I wouldn't be held accountable for a signature that didn't appear to be mine. But deep inside, I wanted to do better. If only to try to find my true self, even if it was only through my writing. I started again picking back somewhere in the midst of where I left off. It was what I thought was my middle name. Perhaps I repeated a few letters. Who knows? This time, I wrote with an attempt to write clearer, much clearer, but it was to no avail. It was the sloppiest it's been since grade school. As soon as I reached the very end of writing my last name, the door to my left opened with a mighty force, and the stout mafia man marched in, followed by his 2 henchmen. He went straight for the paper that I had just signed. He picked it up and studied it briefly. The henchman moved me far away from the table and reattached the Velcro to my right arm, once again fastening me to the chair. The Hispanic man coolly entered and sat on a small black couch across from me. The mafia man spread all of the papers across the table and then looked toward the room where they had just entered from. He nodded, and an elderly, frail man with a tan sauntered in. He reminded me of an Albert Einstein who had been fortunate enough to have received daily doses of sun. He sat down and he immediately went to work. He picked up the paper I had just signed, studied it briefly, and the mafia man handed him the same black ink pen that I used, and in a rapid-fire effort, this old man signed each document one by one, forging my name. I mean, there must have been easily a total of 12 or more. Once that was complete, He disappeared out of the same door just as quickly as he had appeared, and the tall mafia man gathered all the papers as the stout mafia man sat on the table and lit a cigar. "You did good, kid." I guess he was talking to me. He never looked up as the tall guy put all of the papers into a folder and handed it to the Hispanic man who had risen up off the couch at this point. The mafia man told a huge joke and then pulled a wad of cash from his pocket, rifled through it, handed it to the tall man, who in turn handed it to the Hispanic man, what appeared to be well over $1,000, and then the young Hispanic man left the room with the falsified papers. The mafia man approached me once more. "You did good, kid. You thirsty?" I slowly nodded my head yes. I actually was beyond thirsty. It was like I hadn't drunk or eaten anything for days. "Take him downstairs and get him a drink," he told the other not-so-tall guy. I don't remember how we got downstairs, but we ended up at a really nice bar. It was dark, but it was a really expensive place. There were other people down there, but I couldn't make out their faces. There was a slight thud from the music that played as people milled about. The man escorted me to the well-stocked bar and sat me down. He said nothing, and then he turned and disappeared into the dark room. Apparently the first drink was on them. I asked the bartender for a Bacardi and Coke with a lime on the rocks. Sorry, even in my dreams I was not a savvy drink orderer. I've always been a basic rum and Coke drinker, and I'm not ashamed of it. I mean, hell, I could go months without a drink, even a year or two. I actually usually only have a drink when I'm involved in a toast. More times than not at a cast party, and it's usually champagne. I drank that drink rather quickly and ordered another one. The bartender came my way again. She placed my drink in front of me and said, 37. So for the first time, I knew that I was in the future, or else at a really fancy underground establishment. Without reaching, I quickly remembered that I had no wallet. And before I could tell her this, she instructed me to place my right thumb anywhere on the glass bar and press down and hold it. I was lost. I was like, "Say what?" "Here," she said, as she grabbed me by my right wrist. Like many times before, I guess, with clueless, inebriated patrons, she maneuvered my right hand into position and held my right thumb firmly down on the cool, dark glass. After a few seconds, it slowly lit up with a warm, amber glow. An image of a small bill of some sort appeared. It appeared with my total, and my thumbprint was recognized. And once again, an image of it moved away from my actual thumb, like on a virtual assembly line. She released her grip, freeing my hand, and I watched in amusement as my electronic thumbprint made its way through several stages until the transaction was complete. "Your bank will have an electronic receipt on file." She then moved on to tend to another customer. As I sat there and sipped on my cool drink, I couldn't help but to wonder what had happened that had brought me into this dark underground bar. But for the time being, I was able to chill, unshackled, and away from the villains, enjoying a moment of relaxation. To be continued. Thank you for listening. And if you are so inspired, please feel free to donate to the Actors Assistance Fund by clicking on the link down below.